Hey there, you're listening to Yakkin with Nick. I am your host, Nick Hazelton, and I have an interview with my friend Philip Frey. We talk about his past and then about relationships. And I don't know, the way I do Yakkin with Nick is I start asking questions. I figure out like, hey, I kind of want to ask this person about this, and then I start like thinking of some questions I could ask, and then I just go down the rabbit hole and see where things lead up, and that's what happened in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it, and here it is. But oh wait, the audio is a little bit, the problem is, guys, I don't speak close enough to my microphone. I'm convinced this is it. I don't think it's the computer. I think it's me, and I need to get better at that, because I'm doing that now. I actually took my microphone out of its holder, out of its what do you call that? Mic stand, and I'm holding it right up into my face to make sure I talk loud. So there is a little bit, like, my end is just quiet this time, and I think I got it better than last time. I did some other editing tricks, so we'll see, but I apologize for that, and I hope you can overlook it and enjoy this episode. Thanks. Okay, the recording's on, and Audacity's working. Okay. Hey there, this is Yakkin with Nick. I'm here with my friend Philip Frey. I don't know if we've ever talked to Phil. I don't think Philip has ever been on one of my podcasts. Maybe the Anarcho-Yakidalism. I definitely reposted interviews that we've done. But Philip and I have been working together on several, I guess, I want to call them personal development projects together. And we're in a mastermind group together. We meet every week to discuss our goals and plans for our business and ourselves, and we've had a lot of interesting conversations. Philip used to do a show, well, you still do it, sorry, you not as regularly, but you are the host of Valiant Growth, which is a personal development podcast, and I found a lot of value in being able to work with you closely and get to hear what you've had to say. So I know quite a bit about Philip because we talk every week for the last almost 12 months, probably about 10 months. But I've always thought something interesting about you is you live in London, so we communicate from very far distances. But you're from Romania, and I've become very interested in culture, especially well, I don't know about especially, but just where people come from, and how that shapes them. And we were talking a little bit about this. I told you I was going to ask you about this. And one of the things that I thought was like interesting, and one of the things I tell people about Philip when I tell, I'm going to meet with Philip, and they're like, oh, who's that? Oh, he's my friend in London, but he's Romanian. But I always forget whether he was Romanian or Hungarian. And I thought that it was, you either went to school in Hungary or Romanian and vice versa. But anyway, thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, if you have any response to what I just said, go ahead with it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Nick. I mean, I think it's time. It's time that we record one of our talks. I mean, I think we said this a number of times. We're working on something and we get into a discussion. It's like, man, we should have recorded that. So if we can hit at least the level of all of those unrecorded conversations, then we're on the right track.
Definitely, I hope so.
There's actually an unreleased episode of the Anarcho-Yakidalist that I was on, where we discussed morality. I don't know what happened with it, but You remember that? We discussed our confusion about morality, basically. That was the episode.
Oh, I remember talking to you about this. I don't remember whatever happened to that.
Yeah. Does that file still exist?
It probably does. I bet it's hidden in my my hard drive somewhere. It's got to be on this computer, because I've had this computer since we started doing shows. Maybe not. Maybe I didn't have this. I don't know. I don't know what happened to it. I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, you can get it if you join our mailing list.
Yeah, throw it up as a Patreon episode.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite thing.
Yeah.
So, where did you grow up in Romania? That's in Eastern Europe, for people that don't know. Do you border Russia?
No. Romania borders, I guess Ukraine would be closest to Russia. So you got Romania, then you have Ukraine, then you have Russia. Or you have Poland, that borders Russia. Okay. So, yeah. So it's more to the south.
Yeah.
More to the south.
And then where did you grow up in
Romania? So in Romania, I was born in Bucharest, which is the capital. Which is a 2 million, roughly, sized city. Mm-hmm. But when I was 4, my mother and we moved to kind of a pretty isolated part of it, to a town in the mountains, like in a valley in the mountains, and that town had 40,000 inhabitants, and then it was largely surrounded by a rural area. I think it's actually not that dissimilar from Oregon in some ways.
Sure. Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
We've got. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't know, but I bet you're right. From the pictures I've seen, it looks very similar. Just a lot of hills. At least where I'm at, there's a lot of hills. And
no yaks though. No yaks yet. So that's an issue.
Yeah, I wonder if they've got yaks in Switzerland. How close is Switzerland?
How close is it in terms of how similar is it, or
distance?
Distance wise, it is quite far away. At least kind of on a European scale. So it's the Swiss mountains are a completely different range, but some of the altitudes are not that dissimilar.
Okay, you could probably raise yaks in there, but yeah, I don't know if there's a market for that. Do people eat a lot of red meat in Eastern Europe?
Yeah, it's a major staple.
Okay, is it mostly from beef?
Mostly pork, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know how poor is that area. Is it like I don't ever hear about Romania or Hungary. Sometimes I hear about Ukraine because it's in the news sometimes, but otherwise you don't really hear much about Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I mean, because there's not that much going on. So basically, the poverty or like the kind of wealth level has really, really, really changed, and quite recently. So when I was growing up in like the late 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, okay, so let me preface it with it's always been kind of upper middle. You know, if you were to take a distribution of the whole world,
sure,
it would kind of be in the upper middle place. But there's been a huge explosion of wealth in the last 10 or 15 years. So communism ended in 1989. Mm-hmm. And the conditions during communism were quite similar to what you see in North Korea today. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of issues, and you had limited electricity, and you had huge queues for food, and certain kinds of food were not available. So yeah, it was a pretty significant poverty. The state recommended scientific diet, if I remember correctly, it had 1,600 calories per day. Oh. That was the scientific new man was supposed to eat. Wow. But yeah, there wasn't really starvation, but it was pretty deprived. And then roughly 10 years after 1989, it didn't improve that much. But then as far as, what I saw in my own life, it kind of skyrocketed from there to the point where now it's it's a comfortable place. Like, it's not on the level of the US or
Sure.
Western Europe, but you can live in reasonable comfort there. Yeah, I don't know what to compare it with. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. What countries do you know?
Yeah, I guess I only know the United States. I've seen New York. I've never been in New York City. That's it's the biggest place I've ever. I guess I flew into LA once when I went to Disneyland. Those are like the biggest places I've been the most. But then like Portland and I've been around Oregon.
Well, I think, let's say, on the North American context, I'm not 100% on this, but I think like Mexico wouldn't be too far off. I don't know if it's like poorer or wealthier, but I would guess that it's pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably less drug gang violence, maybe?
Yeah, no. Or much less drug gang violence, but we're talking wealth.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. How much do you think that, like, I don't know, how wealthy was your family compared to the rest of the people around you? Just about the same?
Yeah, so my family was, I mean, there were periods in which so when we moved to this place, this town in the mountains, we moved, like, my mother divorced my father and like moved in with another man, so be my stepfather, and like, it depended a lot on whether he was employed or not. So there were kind of rougher times there, and then there were better times, like, depending a lot. But I think we were pretty, I would say, like kind of median, or maybe a little bit below median. So my mother is a teacher. They're not paid that well, but they're also not paid that poorly. And you could have private lessons, which per hour pay reasonably well. So we were kind of in the middle.
Okay.
But to give you an example of the change, like, there are these little things that just, I'm here in the UK, and it hits me sometimes, something just a realization, So, for instance, I remember when I was, 6, so that would be 99, buying a bag of crisps. It would be a project. Like, you have these guys who go to venture capitalists to raise, investment money for their project. It was something like that, So a friend of mine and I, we'd go to like his mother, and get a portion of it, and then go to his uncle and get another portion of it, and then we'd go to my mother, and like round it out with that, and then it would be like a half a day project to raise the money, and then we'd go buy it, and that would be like a moment of victory, something like that, and it's just astonishing to me that now you can have. So I work in retail, and it's not paid particularly well compared to like the average salary, but yeah, buying that same bag of crisps, it would take, I don't know, 7 minutes of work?
Yeah.
7-8 minutes, maybe less, of work to raise the money. So yeah, that's those things, I'm surprised when I think of, like, wow, this is an insane change, and it also changed in Romania, where I left 3 years ago, and the wages, I don't know, I haven't kept in touch too much, but it seems like I was working in an office when I left. I was a marketing assistant, and I wasn't paid too well, but I was paid let's say 50% of like 50% over the minimum wage, or a little bit over that. And this was in 2014. Now my wage would be illegal to pay, because just the minimum wage basically almost doubled over since I left, which is incredible. So I don't know if it's like a huge unemployment followed that, but I don't think so. I just think that things are just improving very, very rapidly. So it would seem, at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. I bet the proximity to Western Europe make it easier to really jump through the economic ladder. Is there a lot of agriculture in that area? Like, what do you think is the main? What is the average occupation
of Romania, or of the area where I grew up?
Both, if you can answer. But the area you grew up in is good.
So again, this is transitioning too. I think when I was growing up, it was still predominantly agricultural, with a good chunk of industry as well. And I think both of those have been falling, but agriculture has been going down pretty fast as a share of the GDP, and it's a transition to services pretty significantly. And you just had these waves, where you had a pretty large rural population, and then you had these Western European companies setting up factories all over the place, because it was cheaper to make it in Romania than it was to, manufacture it in Germany, for instance. Mm-hmm. But shortly before I left, like, that ended too, because Romania became too expensive. Mm-hmm. So those are gone. So now what you have is more like service centers, like call centers, accounting, like kind of outsourced business stuff. I don't know exactly like how representative that is of the whole economy, but there's definitely a shift to kind of services and to something that looks a lot more, Western European or like American in nature.
Yeah. How much do you like? How do I answer this? The best way I can think of it, I wanted to be more specific, but I was thinking about how do you think that do you think that experience was, I don't know, I'm like trying to think of, so do you think that your experience as a Romanian is different than as somebody that's an Oregonian? Like, what I'm asking is, what do you think are the significant pieces of your culture that are different than what you would see in like people in London and in the UK?
Yeah. Well, I want to differentiate, because I think I personally am not a very good. I don't represent either Romanian or Hungarian culture very much. So like there are two levels there. Like I can tell you about what I see as cultural differences, generally speaking, mm-hmm. and what I see as cultural differences between me and, people here that I see.
Sure. How about answer, what do you see the cultural differences between the people you see in Hungary or in Romania versus the people you see in the UK, and then like what do you think are the differences between your own values and the cultural values that you've seen and picked up throughout your life?
Yeah, so also I just want to say that like culture in like regions of Europe is pretty different between countries. So, for instance, what I'm going to say does not apply to Hungary at all. In many of these cases, it's different. Like there are big cultural differences that, kind of sociologists have measured that are just major. So I want to preface with that. Sure. But as far as Romanian culture goes, I guess this, libertarian listeners are going to be scared by this, but, Basically, I'm going to use the language that I picked up from my own like study of sociology and cultures. I read a book in particular that kind of informs my thinking. But so anyway, what I see is the two biggest differences is that first of all, Romanians are much more collectivistic in the sense that the default level of thinking is in groups, or much or more pronouncedly so than what you would see in, say, the US.
Sure.
So when people think about, I don't know how to express it exactly, but when people think about how the world works, they look at groups first and foremost, and things like group loyalty is important, or much more important. So that can be kind of loyalty to your family, loyalty to your community, things like that. And it's kind of a different system where you're expected to contribute more to the groups that you're in, but there's also much stronger support that you can expect from those groups as well. So especially in the countryside around where I was growing up, it was a pretty like standard system that you were building a house, your neighbors would show up and help you, and they wouldn't ask for money for that, but when they were building a house, you were expected to show up, or if there was a harvest of potatoes, which was the major crop there, sometimes people would show up and work for free or for not a lot, but again, that was an obligation that you would do the same. So that's one thing. And the other big difference is what I've seen called power distance, which is low, say here, but it's high in Romania. And what that means is that there's a greater distance between a person in a position of authority versus their subjects. So like a teacher and a student, a parent and a child, a boss and someone who works for that person. What that means is that it's more expected of authority figures to you just follow what they say, and there's an expectation that they gotta know everything, and they're doing the thinking in a way. So where, I don't know, say in a classroom, in the West, it's more of a let's collaborate together, let's learn together, and I'm a guide kind of thing, but we discover things together. Mm-hmm. In Romania, it would be more like I'm the authority, and I know exactly the subject, and your job is to kind of learn from me as much as possible, and not question me, things like that. So that would be like the two big ones.
Okay, where do you think that comes from? Just maybe the communist history, that makes sense to me, but do you think that's where that influence comes from?
What I know
also
from
tribal too, to have the communities be very tight knit like that. That's not necessarily communist, I guess.
No, and I think communism. Yeah, I don't think communism was a major factor on that. At least based on the book actually that I've read. They say that these things, like they go back hundreds or thousands of years, and they're very static.
Yeah.
They don't change, like these fundamental values don't change too much. And I think, communism maybe in theory should have worked better, maybe because of these values, but I don't think it had a major impact, is what I want to say. I think, that it didn't change the culture that much. That's my opinion. I think most people would disagree with that, Romanians. But I think no, it's a longer thing that's been a thing for a long, long time. I don't know exactly what the reason is for that, but that's the place.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I would buy, because it just seems like that's more natural. That's not a communist thing to me, just helping out your neighbors. That's what the Amish do, these tight-knit communities. That's interesting. So how do you think that you've drifted from that? Because you definitely have an individualist streak in you. You and I both come from a similar philosophical, political background, with free market capitalism and libertarianism, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't think I drifted very much.
Yeah.
Because there's a twist in the story, as I was telling you before we're recording, and that twist is that so most of your culture comes not from your community, at least again according to his theories, but from your family and from your first 4 years, where you're mainly exposed to your family. And when I look back now, my family had a completely different culture from the area where I grew up in, and they were much more kind of cosmopolitan style. They did not belong to this rural area at all, but also a very different kind of internal culture from Romania as well. And I could see that individualism and a low power distance as well very, very clearly as I was growing up. Those things were didn't operate the same way as they did around me. And I got into a lot of conflict because of that, because I just couldn't I couldn't understand all of these collectivist stuff. I just didn't get it. I didn't think that way.
Sure.
Now I would, but when I was growing up, and in my teenage phase, I was just pissed off all the time, and I didn't get it. What, I could give you examples, but yeah, I had a lot of conflicts in group type situations, because I was always advocating for let's do something individualistic, and they were like, nope,
you have to play this game.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So you think that came more from your family than philosophy?
I think so. And I think the reason why I was interested in libertarianism is because I was predisposed to it already. So when I read the philosophy that said, no, everybody should leave everybody alone, don't force people to do things that they don't want to do, it'd be like, yeah, that's me. That's been me for all along.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So how did you get turned on to those ideas? Did you find them yourself, or did somebody say, "Hey, libertarianism"?
I found them myself through the study of economics.
Okay.
So I went to university, business management, and I thought that the best possible thing to do to educate myself for life was to read economic theory. I don't agree with that anymore, but anyway, so I just, I started, just reading all sorts of authors, and then I happened upon Milton Friedman, and then, that escalated out of control, to anarcho-capitalism.
Yeah. That was a lot of my path. I took Milton Friedman, and then I found the ANCAPs through that too. Free to Choose was the first book I it wasn't the first book I read. It was the first economics book I read.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we have a pretty, I think I'm not sure if I read Free to Choose first or Capitalism and Freedom first, but yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. But that's interesting. Because I feel like it's kind of it's philosophy has been a place for me to kind of break out of the culture that I see around me. But it's interesting because I don't know if I just don't know if I know how much. I don't know how much I've really thought about that and how much some of the values around me. Of course, I think that the United States has it's more diverse in terms of opinion, maybe, and ethnicity and culture everywhere, because we're just a mishmash. And my guess is that's not the same thing in Romania, just because of the colonial past that we have here. But it's interesting to me that especially that you say that through social scientists tracking, it doesn't seem like it changes very much over time. That's really interesting to me because it seems like the American culture has changed a lot, many different times. And my guess is it's because it's young. But I don't know. I think that's interesting.
Well, the argument that is called, the guy's called Hofstede, is a Dutch sociologist, and in his book he says that like the cultures the values, the core fundamental values that he sees in like that he measured today, he could see going back, way back in history, of the same kind of group of people or that preceded it. So yeah, like surface things change a lot, but core questions such as what is more important, the individual or the group? Like what is the proper relationship between someone in authority and the subordinate? What is the proper role and way to interact between men and women? What else? Like how much should you focus on the long term versus the present? How much risk is the right amount of risk to take? Like kind of core values such as that. His argument is that they do not change. They're very static because you get it in your first 4 years and then you pass it on to your children in their first 4 years, and there's not a lot of access to people at that age that, like society in general could change those things.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I've never looked into that. That'd be interesting. So, what brought you out of Romania? What was it when you went to university?
No, I went to university in Romania.
Okay.
I left. I mean, I was planning to leave Romania for a very, very long time. I think ever since I can remember. I don't know why. I can't exactly tell why, but I probably must have felt that I'm not in the right place very early on. I had my first girlfriend when I was 8, and I was telling her that, okay, when we grow up, we're moving to Germany. That was the country that I heard of that's in the West, and I have no idea where I got this idea from, but I was always like, gotta get out of here. And so yeah, I had that idea for a long time, and then we did a hitchhiking trip with a friend, where we hitchhiked from Hungary to Paris. And in the process, we went through, a lot of Western European countries, and that reinforced it, because I was going through them and talking to people and seeing the buildings and seeing how things worked, and it was all things that appealed to me a lot, like I was like, yeah, I feel that I'm much closer to these people, and I like how things are run here. So that was a big motivation, and then I moved about a year after that, and part of it was I broke up with my family, and like that was a very convenient way of doing that, was to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So like as that process was happening, a friend was telling me that lived here in London, that I was coming home to visit, and I was like, okay, can I with a car, and like, oh, can I come back with you? It's like, okay, and then I came here.
Okay, and so you've been in the UK ever since.
Yeah, it's been about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what? I guess, do you mind me asking about the defooing process?
No.
Okay, so you were a fan of Stefan Molyneux, right?
I was, yeah.
Freedomain Radio.
Yeah, I used to be.
Many of my listeners are familiar with Stefan Molyneux, but he has some very interesting ideas about family and therapy, and I think a lot of them are pretty good. I think he was an introduction for a lot of people in those anarcho-capitalist libertarian spheres to find some things like peaceful parenting, and I don't know how much he was really involved in or very like how much he talked about internal family systems therapy, but he definitely talked about therapy. But what did you get out of Stefan Molyneux that kind of made you decide that you wanted to leave your family? And the DFU is D, family of origin, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so I think I bought into the whole Freedomain Radio philosophy, like lock, stock, and barrel, pretty much. And it is often, I think, of the people in the community who do that, who are like the kind of top fans, most of them DFU.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason for that is, so basically, so yeah, it's a combination of things. Like on the positive side, I would say that he raises, or used to, I mean, I don't know, he changed a lot, but back in the day when I was listening, he used to raise the question a lot, like, what are you getting out of these relationships? You know, is it good for you? Like, you shouldn't stick around just because of a sense of obligation, you know, and you shouldn't take, you know, bad things or like uncomfortable things, unenjoyable experiences just because it's your family.
Sure.
So that was part of it. I still agree with that. But there was a lot of morality and like moral judgment mixed into that as well. So there was like, part of it was, if someone's not a libertarian and they don't respond to the arguments, you know, in a short enough time, then they're evil, basically, or you shouldn't be in a relationship with them. Also, if, you know, there's also an encouragement to like bring up the trauma that you experienced as a child. But again, that was always couched in, you know, in my interpretation, it was always couched in like, your parents were evil for traumatizing you, and kind of your goal with the conversations, as I think as per like standard Freedomain Radio procedure, is to confront them and to have them recognize it. That yes, they made mistakes and that was evil. You know, that's what I got out of it, and that's what I did. And I think basically the reason why most people DFU is that like this methodology, in theory, it's supposed to, I don't know, either improve the relationship or end it because it's not worthy to have if they don't, you know, recognize these things. Mm-hmm. In practice, I think like if you approach someone in this way, with this language, well, it kind of, it's really judgmental and really like deep, and you know, it's like not a small thing to have your child show up to you and tell you that, oh, you abused me and you're evil and why did you make these mistakes, and I want you to, you know, like that's not an easy conversation to begin with. And if you're angry from listening to like hundreds of hours about this, if you're angry, you have the communication style that's in Freedomain Radio. You pick this kind of debative, argumentative style up, like as opposed to something to NVC. Basically, I think it's like guaranteed failure. Like if you take it seriously, like your relationships are going to end, like probably all of them or most of them. It's just, you can't, it's just not humanly possible to go in with this mindset, this emotion, like the moral judgment, and to have people understand you and like give you closure or something like that. I think that's almost impossible. And I think that's kind of what happened. It's my responsibility, but I regret doing all of these things. And I would do it very differently today.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting because I've the Stefan Molyneux guy. As many people know, he's changed a lot from where he was. But that was always one of my, I wouldn't say always, I guess, but that was one of my things with that's why I like NBC. I was kind of introduced to these the idea of trauma through NBC language. And it's been very different for me, and I definitely had the times where I was like, yeah, I need to get out of here and away from these people, because they're holding me back, because they wouldn't let me drop out of school, and that's what I was really upset about that, and so I was interested in it for a while, but then I kind of realized, oh, actually, I really would like to stay on this farm, so I'm going to stay with these people who live here and make sure I can get it. But I think it's interesting to make that change is very significant, and that's just it's a huge decision, and it's too bad that you didn't do it the way you wish you had done it now. But it's, that's probably, it would be my guess that's kind of the biggest decision you've made in your life in terms of the like kind of the amount of consequences, right? You kind of threw yourself out of your environment and try to make a new life. And so since then you've kind of changed the way you feel about your parents. Where do you think, how do you think that's changed? So when you first moved, you had just left your family, right? And it was kind of, I assume that you got what you wanted at first, right? And do you think that was, do you think that's true? Do you think that getting away was helpful at first?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, I don't know how to put it. Like, it's so much in my mind that it could have been done so much better, But, there were benefits to it, definitely. I reset my social life completely. So, I have not been in contact with a single person I'm not in contact right now with a single person that I've known for my first 23 years. Like, they don't know how to reach me.
Wow.
I just disappeared, basically. The reason being I had this idea that they're not worthy people to begin with, influenced by Freedomain Radio because they didn't have the exact same views. Like partly just because I didn't want to be like some members of my family were more, I told them I don't want to, I want to end it, but some of them did not respect that. So I was like, okay, I got to cut everything. So I basically disappeared. The person who is in touch with me and can reach me right now, basically the longest relationship that I've had is 2.5 years. That's still going. It's a complete reset to zero.
Wow. I didn't know it was quite that intense. I knew that you didn't talk to your parents, but that's pretty, wow. This is like, it's impressive on a level of that you like that it takes effort to do that. But I know it's a bummer because you're not happy about that now. But what do you, if you don't like, are you more comfortable if I keep asking more and more personal questions about this?
No, yeah, I'll tell you if I'm not. So
Okay.
far, so good.
Sure. So, yeah. So when did you start changing your mind? When did you kind of realize that, oh, I didn't do this right? Was it right away that you realized, oh, I could have done that better? And then kind of throughout time, as you thought more and more about it, you kind of realized, wow, maybe you didn't say it, you feel like that's a mistake, or you feel like you could have done it better. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So basically, I'll just clarify. I don't think, like if I were to go back in time, I don't think I would keep many of these relationships active. Because I still don't think that you have to keep relationships that you're not getting much out of. And many of them, as I grew interested in different things, like the kind of what we could do together with family members or friends, or what we could talk about, it really got restricted. Mm-hmm. But I left nuking the place, like that's the problem. Like I left with, everybody was hurt in the process. Whereas it could have been done simply like, okay, it still would have been challenging, but be like, okay, I've changed. I'm moving on, I don't think I'm going to keep in touch very much, instead of, you're evil, you're wrong. And, I'm leaving because you're an abuser, like to leave with that's the final impression, that's what I really regret.
Yeah. So when did you realize that you did regret that?
So yeah, initially I was like, I just cut these low quality evil people out of my life. So, it was rough, but I had to do it. Like that was kind of my perspective after I moved. And it really started to change after I've read NVC. Like for me, that was the big change in this, because NVC really questioned the whole, like, are people evil? Are people like just low quality, like intrinsically speaking, if that makes sense. And that really challenged that. And as that I read it, and as that seeped into my mind, and I saw examples in MVC of people handling much more difficult situations with it, like using the technique. Maybe we should explain what it is. But anyway, so I see that it could work in much more difficult situations. And I saw that, compared to NVC, the way I communicated, the way I brought up these issues, basically what I wanted was just kind of some visibility and some empathy that, these things were legitimately hurtful that happened in my childhood, but I picked the worst possible strategy of getting there. And MVC was like, it showed me, no, wait, if you don't go in like this, I could have actually gotten what I was trying to get.
Yeah. I think the nonviolent communication practice, that specifically the enemy imagery, has been very helpful for me, recognizing that. That's cool. I didn't know that was a big influence. Where did you hear about NVC from?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know. I think it was floating around personal development circles, but I can't pinpoint it exactly. Maybe it was anarcho-yakitalism. It could have been with Daryl. It could have been, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't remember.
Was it as recent that you've gotten into nonviolent communication?
I think it's been about a year and a half.
I guess it could be. I'm forgetting how long ago I've been making that anarcho-yakitalism. That was a long time ago. I think it's been more than a year since I released a anarcho-yakitalist episode.
Yeah, timing wise, it could work, because I think I've been into this like for a year and a half or 2 years, something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I just don't remember when I did that. But it definitely floated around the personal development circles. I think Jake DeSillis is familiar with it, because I don't know.
I don't think he I don't
really.
think he covered he covered it recently on his podcast, and he didn't give the impression that he gave the impression that it's the first time, and
Cool.
he wasn't very favorable towards it, so
really?
I don't think it was yeah.
A lot of people don't like nonviolent communication, and there are some good reasons. There are a lot of people who use it in a stupid way, I think. And it can be, like, people's issue with it a lot is, it's manipulative. And you could manipulate somebody who didn't understand what you were doing, but it's pretty obvious to see when somebody's trying to manipulate you with NVC. At least usually, I think. I don't think it's that great of a tool, but that's usually what people feel like. What did Jake DeSillis think about it? Was that his what's the I don't know the word for that, like, outcome on it, final, what was his conclusion?
Verdict. Yeah.
Verdict.
Well, basically, I think if I remember correctly, his issue was that he thinks that so he thinks that the fundamental, like, okay, so let me say this. So for me, NVC appeals the most as like something you do personally, as a technique. He focused more on is this the solution to violence in the world?
Oh.
Which doesn't interest me that much, but I mean, they are related to some degree. And he was saying that and based on other books that he read, he doesn't think that. So NVC's basic theory is that, I guess, conflict occurs because of misunderstanding, or you could say lack of empathy. And if only people could understand one another, then you wouldn't have conflict, or you wouldn't have as much, or most conflict could be solved. And then the tools of NVC are, just to introduce it, like, communicate in a way that expresses your needs. And because needs are universal among people, if we can connect on that's a bridge between people, that, like, we speak different languages, we approach problems differently, like, because of religion, politics, background, etc. But if we can strip that down to what is this person actually needing, we can make that connection, then conflict disappears, or can be reduced. Like, I think that's roughly the idea of NVC, and his take on it was like that this theory is not correct, and that conflict occurs because of again, economic reasons, if I remember correctly, like economic reasons, and basically says, no, the solution to conflict is property rights, and I don't know if he said morality as well, but basically some kind of morality or like, I don't know, behavior standards based approach where everybody adopts that, and that reduces conflict over time. And I think Steve Pinker made that argument, and which kind of hits on a larger point of, I think, NVC's core philosophy is very explicitly amoral.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can't be, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to be a fan of, like, you either, you can have morality or you can have NVC. I don't think you can have both at the same time, because they're just contradictory. Like, maybe you can use the technique, but they're just contradictory in their core philosophy. And to me, NVC, having read it and having thought about morality, which is actually that episode that's unreleased that I mentioned at the beginning, like, that was that, when I was thinking about that, to me, that started me thinking about, is morality really a valid, objective thing? And I couldn't run that logic. So I said, okay, I'm amoral now. And I have been since, because it doesn't make sense to me. I'll just say his other objection was that there are better techniques that work better interpersonally as well. And he mentions parent effectiveness training and a negotiation book called Getting to Yes, which he says has like techniques that work better. I don't know. I haven't read them, but I'm like, okay, I got to read them. Like, are they really better or not? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I wasn't. Yeah. I didn't realize that was kind of his philosophy. But that's an interesting objection. I can see that why people would have an issue, I guess, from that perspective with NBC. My things with it is I don't like the jargon, and I don't think it is a solution to world peace or world whatever you want to call it, violence. I don't think that's. I mean, sure, I think that if everybody, because I don't know if it's really a conflict over. Right, I don't know. You know, we have, like, I would say we all have these needs, but I wouldn't call them needs unless I'm talking to somebody who's familiar with NVC. Usually I like to call them values or desires. That's kind of my main thing, because I don't like that word need. To me, stuff that I need is like what's necessary to survive. I don't necessarily.
Yeah, it's too strong.
Yeah, I don't need acceptance. I definitely want it, and I'm going to be much happier with acceptance, but I don't necessarily need it. But yeah, I think that the specifically going, like, I like the OFNR model, the observations, feelings, needs, requests. So you observe, okay, you know, what happened. All right, that made me feel, and then it's the end part. This, you know, it made me feel this way because it did, you know, my need for acceptance wasn't met. And then what's my request? You know, what request am I making to? And we could say strategy here, I guess. What strategy am I going to use to fulfill that request, or that fill that need? And I think that's a really helpful way at looking at things, and that's been helpful for me. It's like, oh, I'm upset right now. Well, why? And then why do I feel that way? And then what can I do about it?
Yeah.
That's a pretty simple method. And if you take out the jargon, it's a little bit easier to understand, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's basically whatever gets you deeper to a deeper understanding. That's great. I mean, I personally believe that. I personally experienced this, that if I approach a conflict from the point of view of, oh wait, actually I'm going to use needs. I use needs. Like, what are the needs of the other person being involved right now? That immediately humanizes them for me. And it happened many, many times, you know, and that helped me be like, oh, okay. Like, you know, we don't have to focus on like the shallow level of like, what are they saying exactly? You know, like, it's like, no, like, let's focus on what do they actually want out of this interaction. And I found it very helpful. But I keep hearing it from other people that, yeah, if you use like the vanilla NVC way of speaking, it sounds fake.
Yeah. The I statements. I feel this way because you did, or, you know, because this happened. And yeah, people don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's more. It's very. I mean, it's the structure itself. If you like follow it, it's very, very. Yeah, it's very strict in a way, you know. And that's. I think it's good for training your thinking because it guides you to, like, break away from, wait, is what I'm saying accurate? Mm-hmm. What am I feeling about it? And actually, why am I feeling that? And then what do I want the other person to do about it? Or what do I want to do about it? You know, like, that's a great line of thinking. But it sounds alien if you say, yeah, like, oh, I need some, I don't know.
Need my need for... acceptance is the only thing that comes through my mind. I want to stop saying that.
Yes, I could say, I mean, it completely doesn't apply to this conversation, but I could say, so yeah, Nick, I noticed that you interrupted me twice, and that makes me feel angry because my need for respect is not being met. So would you wait for me to finish what I'm saying? Like, just, I think it's, you know, I may have made a mistake, but that's a pretty, like, standard way of putting it. But unfortunately, you know, many people say that, yeah, doesn't sound genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is, I think it's much more genuine, like, than, yo, Nick, you're an asshole, you know?
Right, and that's one of my things I like about NVC is that it, people say that it's not genuine, but to me, what NVC is, it's a language to understand your emotions. It's a methodology, right? And it teaches you to be very specific about what you feel and how you feel, or, I mean, why you felt that, and then to be articulate about what you want. It's, you did that. I understand much more about what you want, the way you describe it in NVC than if you call me an asshole. Like, hey, Nick, you're an asshole. Stop interrupting me. I would probably get that message just fine. But if you just say, hey, Nick, you're an asshole, I'm not gonna. I don't know why you're upset. But if you, explain it to me, most of the, it depends on the person. Like with me, I'm not very sensitive. You could get away with not using NVC language, and I probably wouldn't get upset with you. But people, especially people who like tend to be close to you, I find that they really don't like that. They really don't like that kind of communication. And that's where I was like, after I realized, I'm not communicating very well about my ideas. Maybe I should change that, and I'd get better results. And that's what I found is that if I just take a genuine interest in the other person and how they feel, and I have an understanding of how I feel, and what I want out of the conversation, and I can search for what they want, I have a much better time, than if I'm, just trying to argue a point or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's when you can just go down, like this happens in politics, but it happens with everything else too, that you can just go down the rabbit hole, like it's happened to me many times. Yeah. It's just, you get nowhere, it's been half an hour. Everybody's pissed off. Nobody remembers where the conversation started. So yeah, basically nobody's needs got met. You just wasted half an hour and everybody's pissed off. And the reason is that nobody talked about, I don't know, as Rosenberg would put it, the author, creator of NVC, but nobody talked about what's alive in them. They're just these kind of abstract. And then the other thing is, like the interruption example, like that's a very simple and like obvious request. Mm-hmm. Like it's pretty obvious if I say, oh, Nick, you're an asshole because you're interrupting me, like it's pretty clear what I want.
Sure.
But there are cases where what you want is much more complicated, and if you don't think about what you want, like how are you going to communicate what you want if you don't know it either, So I don't know, I'm thinking of an example here, but I don't know, let's say we live together, and every time we get into a heated argument, you storm off. Mm-hmm. And you leave the room. Like I'm pissed off about it. What do I exactly want? Like hey, don't leave the room. Just keep listening to me. Like, is that what I want? I don't think so. But, because like, do I want you to like sacrifice yourself to just stay in the room no matter what? No. So what do I want? And that's the question the OFNR can help get to. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's just recognition. Maybe it's just, hey, I'd just appreciate it if you listened to me once, Nick. So yeah, I think it's very important. And to me, this is kind of like where I've been focusing my, if you want to say activism at all, is I'm just like trying to, like I've stopped trying to like talk to people about taxation and the non-aggression principle or economic theories or laws, whatever. And I've been focusing on like trying to just talk to people about what they're interested in, and really try to understand them. And I don't use NVC in the, like, they say like street NVC as people, just being more, it's not the clunky jargony language that a lot of those what do you call them? No, I want to say practitioners. That's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
People who practice that methodology. I think that at least, and this is what I get from Daryl Becker with these, is the best way this method can be used is internally. And I found that if I just run these sort of systems in the background, that I'm just kind of checking myself, because I do this anyway, because I'm interested in how I feel and how I can make myself feel the best I can every day. So I'm paying attention to my own emotions pretty much constantly. And then I'm just trying to become more and more interested in other people, and I've definitely found an improvement in my relationships. They're I would say even probably 6 months ago, I was upset with plenty of people in my life because I didn't feel like I was getting some of these needs that I wanted fulfilled. So I was upset with a lot of people, and then as I just did some like personal work and looking at this stuff, and like, well, why do I feel that way? I realized, okay, I'm not getting the recognition I deserved, or the respect, or I want certain kind of help here. I don't feel like my value is being whatever it is. I've kind of taken the point of, well, I need to stop looking at these, like some of these relationships, as an imposition. I need to like kind of look at, well, what do I want out of this relationship? And I need to actually look at how do I get it, and what is realistic. And so I just, working through that sort of thing, it's been very helpful. And I think that just the kind of understanding of these people are just like me, trying to fulfill their own desires and values, and they're using the strategies they've learned in their life, and maybe I've learned some better strategies than they have, so I can empathize and realize, okay, it doesn't really help me to be mad at these people, because I'm not really mad at them anymore either. I'm just not, but it doesn't help me to be mad, and I think that's very true. Like you're going to find a higher quality in your relationship if you can let go of anger and harsh feelings towards people and make amends.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing, and I think the big factor was post NBC was just not dehumanizing people. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It seems like it's just the absolute like standard way of speaking and thinking. It's just, like, okay, somebody does things that don't meet your needs. Yeah, you use NBC lingo.
Yeah.
So they're an asshole, or they're whatever. Like, then you're like, they're women. And they're just, you can't talk to women, or it's like, it's black guys, just you can't find there. So, they're always snoring or whatever.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, then you just lose, you lose touch completely. And that's where I think communication just ends, and that's running around in your brain. Communication ends, like any chance that you'll be able to, to really get what you want, that really reduces significantly. And you just get into the spin cycle, right? You're like, these, you're just stuck there. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're like, oh no, wait, this is just another person, and they just, they're trying to, as you said, they're just trying to, get their own needs met. And they have different approaches to it, and I might not like it, but at least, I'm not thinking that, they're these just evil or bad or low quality people. And for me, that's been the change. And it's hard. Like, it's a real effort to hold on to this sometimes. Mm-hmm. But, when I always, it's always good, because I guess, anger can be useful if possibly, to defend yourself, maybe not, it gives you energy, or to make changes, I can imagine like a few situations where that's useful. Sure. Maybe, again, I don't know, maybe not. But let's say that it is, But I'm not, I don't know about you, Nick, but I'm not facing those situations, where I just need a big boost of energy to get away or fight or things like that. Like, no, I'm like, it's really small things, small, tiny things. I don't need to kick your ass because you left the dishes uncleaned and now I can't, like it's overkill. It's not necessary. And I think most situations that people find themselves in, yeah, like if you fight and flighting about, I don't know, someone left the faucet leaking, like that's nonsensical, like that's just, how's that going to help you?
Right. It doesn't actually solve the issue, and that's another good thing about the kind of the focus on strategies too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, Nick, I would go back to talking about your family. Do you,
Sure.
Now that you've you've decided that you wouldn't do it the same way but some of these people you wouldn't want to have, you still don't really want to have relationships with them, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a case-by-case basis where some of them, I can't see like what we could do together that would work, and that's not because they're bad people, just we have different interests, and that's fine. But yeah, there are some people I'm like, yeah, we could get some, we could get some stuff out of it, plus, yeah, we could get some stuff out of it, maybe it's a limited thing we could do together, but yeah, like, wouldn't it be cool to have someone to talk to about my childhood, for example?
Right. Yeah, do you think that you'll reach back out to some of these people?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I want to eventually, but it's just, it's just hard to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine it would be there would be a difficult thing to think about, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it a lot, like how would make sense, and like how could I do it? But I feel I left so explosively. It makes it hard too. So I don't know. It may actually be that some of these people have found me, because I get, for instance, I get disproportionate listens on Valiant Growth from like the county that I grew up in.
Oh, yeah.
I have no reason to believe that. Like it's not a very techie area, like it just doesn't, I would assume that maybe it's people have, discovered me, but they haven't reached out so far. So I think eventually either they will stumble upon me or I will go back to it. But, it's hard, man. It's hard to go back.
Yeah. I can't imagine that, because I'm just in a very, very different place, because I live with my parents still in the place I was born and raised. So we're in very different spots. But I don't know, it's interesting, and it's, this is I'm sure this is one of your bigger struggles in life. So it's interesting just to know that about you, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I built my life and my social circle back up, like since I moved here, and I have a bigger circle now, and I interact more. I was pretty much a loner in Romania. Probably partly because I didn't fit in, but partly because I just didn't. I didn't see value in people. I didn't see how to collaborate. I was an asshole, things like that.
Sure.
So yeah, those needs are being met, like they're met right now. But yeah, this thought does come back to me more like, I don't know, I don't want to die having left like this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's more the motivation. Yeah.
Yeah. What other lessons then, being kinder in your communication, do you think that you've learned, just from the whole experience?
Yeah, well, one of it is like going in with moral judgment is like a surefire way to not be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I mean, some members of my family actually, you know, like I got some visibility from them, and I think it's testament to they're actually pretty spectacular people in some ways, you know, that you know, you go in guns blazing with someone, like you traumatized me, I can still hear you to some extent. Like that's spectacular. But yeah, it's the worst possible approach, you know? So I guess on the strategy level is like what we were talking about, know what you want. Like if let's say you have things that, like, I'm going to talk with parents in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Like you grew up, yeah, and you figure out that there were things that happened in your childhood that have scarred you, you know, and that wish were different. And many of those things were choices made by your parents. You know, when you come to that realization, I think it's important, like, is it worth talking about or not? Like that's, you know, just purely utilitarian. And then the second is like, okay, if you do talk about it, what are you trying to get out of it? And what is the best approach to getting there? You know, like, okay, if you want to punish them and like inflict the pain that you felt, then yeah, maybe, you know, like going in all judgmental is the best strategy. But I think what people want is, as I said before, I think what people want is visibility, like more than anything, you know, like to have someone who was actually there, who can confirm that, yeah, those things were not, you know, like those things were not the best way, you know, and that they can see like, oh yeah, you know, like that, you know, I don't know, not even the apology, but just the recognition that you're not alone in thinking that this was an issue, because sometimes it's hard to get support on this stuff. So yeah, when you talk to someone who is actually there and they confirm it, that's powerful. But you got to think about what you're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think other than some really spectacular people, you know, are really far in philosophy and whatever you want to call it, in personal development or whatever. I mean, just, you know, bringing this up to the average person that they were a bad parent. Like, just, you know, just think about that.
Yeah, I don't think they would like that. Right?
You know, and you want to be understood. So you gotta do this. You gotta I guess you gotta be aware of this, you know, that you're gonna be bringing in things that are very, very difficult for people to process. So you gotta tailor it in a way where, and I think empathy is very useful here, where you're not talking about, you made these mistakes and you're evil and you've hurt me, and, you know, but you're talking about, you know, like, no, this is my experience. Like, yeah, the I language, this is what I felt. And I'm not doing this to punish you or something like that, but, you know, just tell them what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
And even then, recognize that it's still going to be very challenging. Yeah. And I don't know, I thought about it myself, that if I'm going to be a parent, and I went through all of these things, yeah, and I've thought about all of it, and I'm hoping to get to a better place over time in my ability to listen to people. But still, you know, if I'm thinking, if my child comes up to me and they're 20 and they're like, you made like mistake after mistake after, you know, like I thought about it. They come up to me and they say, okay, I've thought about it, and like, you made this mistake and you've really hurt me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be hard. That would be hard to stay in that conversation, like to stay present in that conversation. You know, like I would have a hard time hearing that. So yeah, just recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Because that's, you know, I don't think it's kind of the problem. It's not what parents want to achieve, right?
Right. And it's a lot of effort to raise a child. I mean, it's you put a lot of work into it, and I think it's unrealistic to think that you as a parent can be perfect, or as a kid that your parents can be perfect and really do their raise you perfectly. It's just not going to happen, and part of life is taking that personal responsibility and realize, well, I got what I got from them, and now it's my turn to take that and make it applicable to my life. And it's difficult, and sometimes it can be frustrating if you're left with some baggage, right? But you do have to have that realization. You're right.
Yeah, it's very touchy. Another thing that I learned recently is I lived with I don't know how you call it, a young family. They had a baby, basically. Mm-hmm. And I just saw like how challenging it is, and they were, they weren't in such a bad situation from many points of view, but still, and it wasn't 5 children. It was 1 baby.
Yeah.
It was a huge, undertaking, and stressful and taxing on a number of different fronts. And, I think when I was back listening to FDR, you don't get that, you feel your pain, but you don't see that, just how difficult it is sometimes, and that's when people are together and, imagine, I'm thinking single mothers, that's insane, or single parents. I didn't realize, I swear, I heard it, and I was like, yeah, that's hard, but actually living through it and seeing what it takes to raise a baby, I don't know how they do it, man. It's it's incredible, I'm not saying it's a great thing, and, but it have some perspective, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess I haven't thought about it. I've been around a lot of kids my age and seen their families work, and that's been interesting for me. Especially Mormon families are interesting, where they have 4 or 7 kids, and 4 is the minimum in a Mormon family. So there's so many of them, and they're all different ages, and that's really interesting to see how they deal with a dozen children. And of course the older ones are then delegated to take care of their younger siblings, and that's the way they usually deal with it. But it is really difficult, and it's very, I don't know, I'd like to do it someday, but I'm definitely not at the point where I think I have the patience.
Yeah, I mean, really I'll say what I saw, that it's, sorry for interrupting you, Nick. No, I'll just, just go. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I haven't figured out my own shit. I don't know how to figure out how to raise somebody else to get to this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess, I don't know if your listeners are looking for parenting advice from a 19-year-old, 24-year-old who've never had children. But I think that you gotta be ready, you gotta be, you need time to be ready is what I want to say, you need objective things figured out in your life before you can, cause I guess, the thing is we now have very high standards of what good parenting is, especially in this community, but in others as well. And the bar gets higher and higher. And how your children are going to look back on your performance will, that'll be, I don't know if it's correct to say higher or lower, but it's definitely going to be a different standard. And, just, I would say fertility is not as important as being, being ready for it. I hear in some circles, it's no, have it in your 20s because, birth defects and stuff like that. But you check the research, and from what I saw, it gets pretty bad after, it goes up sharply after 40, but until then it's not so bad. So I'm just thinking, dude, if you can, if you can if you don't have significant savings, don't do it. You know, that's what I saw. You know, you want to have a good experience. You can't have one party like with the baby all the time and the other person like working 60 hours a week to cover the expenses, for example. Yeah. That sucks on both ends. Like, I know, I would say like go for either not working or working a little bit from home, but you know, like go for something where there's like a change, like and someone's not working all the time and the other person is not with the baby all the time. And then, yeah, if you haven't figured out how to communicate, you know, and how to deal with stressful situations with your partner, again, like sort that shit out first, man. Because it's like every weakness that you have in your personal development, like gets blown up when you have a child, you know, like it goes under the magnifying glass, you know, and so yeah, it's really, I mean, from what I saw, yeah, like it's really rewarding. It was just really cool. It's just like, I don't know, family, friend, something like that. I would come home and then you have this like 6-month-old be like running or like crawling to you, and that's great, you know. And it's just beautiful, and it's really great to see them grow up and things like that, man. But you gotta prepare, you know, and if that means that it's like 5 years later and you're not 55 at the moment, you know? Like, no, sort your finances out, sort your communication skills out, sort your, you know, like your inner harmony out. Like just, you know, be ready. Be as ready as possible.
Or your kids will realize how bad of a parent you were after they grow up, and they'll leave you to go move to London.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. I want to keep you on because I've got more time. And how much time do you have? I should ask.
I can keep going, man. I just
okay, let's keep going.
You hooked me on Joe Rogan recently, so I'm like, okay, that's
we gotta keep going.
Gotta keep going.
No, I think that I thought I had an idea, but I wanted to bring it back to NBC, but I don't remember where that idea went. So I want to change it to go to I want to talk to you about I guess the other places of personal development. What else? Like I can look at my life and look at a couple significant events, and I assume you can too. Obviously, leaving Romania is a big significant event. But what were some other ones that you think have taught you some valuable lessons?
Well, I think at this point many of them were like less events and more just discovering ideas.
Yeah.
But okay, if I have to say an event like that hitchhiking trip, for example, it was 40 days, roughly. Like that was huge. We were exposed to so much hardship and discomfort.
Yeah. Like
it was exciting as well. Like it was this constant sense of aliveness, and part of it was like we're just getting new stuff all the time, you know, like because I haven't been to any of those countries, you know, other than like I'd say 1 or 2 of them, and we went to 10. So it's like new places, like every day, you know, we're moving on to something new, and that was very, very exciting. But at the same time, we did it on like no budget, basically, like very, very little budget. We were hitchhiking. I think we spent like 3 or 4 nights in a hostel, and the rest was like people we picked up on couch surfing, like recently strangers offering their couches, some connections that we had, and sometimes, you know, it was just sleeping in the train station or on the street in Amsterdam, for example.
Wow.
That was one night that sucked. It's just the wind, you know, like we'd go to sleep for like an hour or half an hour, and then the wind and the cold would become too unbearable. Then we'd, okay, gotta move, and then we'd move somewhere else, and then we'd sleep another hour, you know, like stuff like that. But anyway, that was 3 years ago, and I still feel the effects like we're both into stoicism, right? And one of the ideas is expose yourself to discomfort, like even if you don't have, like, before you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you're more adaptable. Well, this for me was a huge expose yourself to discomfort moment, and like now I'm a lot less worried about stuff. Like, I can sleep on the street if I have to. I've done it before. I don't want to, but I could do it. Yeah. Actually, I think partly because of that experience, I got rid of beds and sleeping in beds, because we're sleeping on the floor even with couch surfing a lot. Like, I can sleep on the floors. Like, since then, I don't have a bed. Things like that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I think that's like the main thing is if you can struggle in some way and do some hard stuff, it's very valuable. I've never done something that quite intense. I've gone on like camping trips that have sucked, but never quite sleeping in the streets. That's a little bit different. The closest I've been is on a mushroom hunting trip. Me and my buddy, we wanted to get out there so we could have all day. So we went out there that night, and so we slept in the car. But I was like, I'm not sleeping in this car. This is too uncomfortable. So I slept on the ground, and it had a sleeping bag, so I was fine. But that's the closest I've been to sleeping on the street.
Yeah, but you can do. Anyway, I just want to say it was a really good experience. I just highlighted the bad stuff about it, not bad, but discomfortable stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's why that was a source of value too. But you can do like things that are not this extreme, but that kind of add up, like little lifestyle things. Like, I don't know, like last winter I turned off my heating, for example.
Wow. Like,
it's not that big of an accomplishment in England.
Okay.
But yeah, that was, there wasn't anything extreme, like insofar as I didn't have to like be in the middle of nowhere sleeping on the street. But that was like, okay, now I don't need heating anymore. Sure. It's on right now. But if I, ever wanted to, I'm like, I know what to do. Just put on layers, dude.
Right.
Problem solved, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I can do it. So if there's ever an opportunity, like, I don't know, I can live in a container or something, but the container, doesn't have heating. I'm like, okay, whatever,
You'd be comfortable in my situation. Right now, I can keep with a heater. I can keep it 20 degrees above outside in my trailer. But when it's 30 degrees out, it's a little bit cold. And when it gets lower, it's even colder. It's been cold here recently.
Yeah, I think it's colder in Oregon, I would guess, a little bit at least, but it's still kind of. But anyway, man, like, you've been doing a lot of this stuff, like all your trailer living experiments. That's all discomfort, right?
Yeah, I would say, it's been valuable, especially moving down to the river and providing like entirely for myself for a month and a half, I guess, is really what I got. It was valuable. I learned that it was really hard, and of course I gave up halfway through the summer because I just didn't have the time or energy to try to do it as well as I could have. But it was interesting. It was a really fun experience being out there during the summer. Isn't so bad. You don't get cold, but like having to move the water back and forth and learning, I got to cook for myself and how long it actually takes to cook food and shopping for myself. That was really good for me. I'd like to do more challenges like that. Like, that's kind of, because of the stoicism, I like to do that. And I like to just find little random ways. I just try the really, like, I break it down as much, like, all of my, like, things down to, like, my core values like you do. And, like, what I break it down to is I want to be free. I want to be able to do the stuff I want to do. And if you want to be free, part of that is being resilient to damage or to hardship.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't resilient, then when something bad happens, you're limited by that, and then you're not as free as you used to be. So, if it's easier for you to get stuff done when it's 72 degrees in your place, when it's 50, it might throw you off. But if you've experienced being at 50 and know how to fix that, you become resilient, right? And now your ability to work has not been hindered because you've already dealt with 50 degrees and you know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I guess I think someone could say like, just be smart and you will never get in these situations. And that's true. But I think,
I don't know if that's true. I don't think that's true.
Okay, never is too strong, but you can avoid them, yeah? Like most people can live a life where it's not the case. But I think you can do these big, crazy things, and then that really translates to like the smaller discomforts of life that you cannot avoid, Like, like the heater breaks, and you're like, yeah, I can get that fixed in a day, but I'm still gonna have a day where I'm not suffering that much, or I'm not afraid that much, cause I've been through that shit before. And that's great, and then there's this big, like, meta peace of mind as well that, if everything hits the fan, I can still do things. That's good. That's a good. Yeah, another thing that I was inspired by Chris Stefani. You had him on the show, right?
I don't think I've ever had Chris on the show. I've been on Choice Up Conversations, but I don't think I've had him on Yakkin with Nick. Or
anyway, yeah, he's a mutual friend. He's really into experimentation with a lot of stuff. I'm just saying this for the listeners.
Sure.
And one of the things he does is he fasts for a week every year.
Oh, does he? I didn't know that about him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just one of he does a lot of things like that, so it's cool to follow him for that. But
it's interesting.
I was inspired by that, and I did that too. I did that for 6 days, and like that's another thing where you don't have to be that very extreme, like put yourself in extreme circumstances to do it, just don't eat. It's really simple. So I did a 6 day fast.
Okay.
And that had an impact. Like I'll just say this before I give this out as advice. Do some research. Get vitamins, etc. Like don't. But anyway, if you die, I'm taking no responsibility.
This is not health advice.
Yes. But so I did it for 6 days, and it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling very weak in the beginning. I think it's because I wasn't taking any minerals, so that that kind of helped after that. But yeah, still, like, I had food on my mind pretty much the whole time. But
sure.
Here's the thing: I've done it. It was a cool accomplishment. I did it when I work in retail, and it's pretty physical, so I did it when I didn't have to go into work. I still went into work one day, and it was a nightmare. Like, it's not a good thing to do a physical job while fasted. But anyway, so I did it, and now I have no food. I'm somewhere I have no food. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not like, oh, I gotta find some food. I can really feel the difference, because oh wait, I still have 5.5 days,
right,
before I break my record. Yeah, and that's powerful. And I think for you too. Yeah, for instance, like, you're out in the woods, you forgot to bring your picnic bag, basket. You don't give a shit, you just keep going. I've done it already. Yeah, and it's really tangible. It's almost physical, like, I just don't get that panic mood from my body too.
Absolutely.
Since
I've never fasted for more than a day. But doing intermittent fasting, kind of this is what they call intermittent fasting, is like you eat within an 8-hour window. I've been doing that, roughly, I guess, for a few months, and I noticed pretty quickly that it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to eat for hours. I could eat one meal, or not even eat a meal, and I can be fine until dinner if I want to. I like to have a certain amount of energy, and I don't want to do that all the time. You know what I mean? But ever since I started doing that, I've definitely realized, like, oh, it's just not that bad to be hungry. I know that I can live for, 3 months without food. Maybe, I don't know what that is based off of. I assume that people with less body fat, have a less to live on than others. But you know what I mean? Once you realize, the capability, and that once you've really gone past your comfort zone, like, you realize that, you expand it, right? Once you get out of it, you expand it. And that's a really valuable thing, just to expand your comfort zone. Because where you're comfortable is probably where you're at your best. That's not necessarily true, but for me, it is, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think there's also like a self-esteem level gain from it too, like, so to speak. Like, you not only in the particular area where you accomplish something or you experience this kind of discomfort, but overall, like, your tolerance for discomfort increases and your fear decreases, because that I've done all of these weird, crazy shit, so I could deal with even things that are not like exactly what problems I've dealt with before, but so I have the capacity to deal with the basic challenges of life. Yeah, that's Nathaniel Branden's self-esteem.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's what I like. I like his version of self-esteem. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Maybe but maybe it reduces the "and worthy of happiness" part.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I don't deserve to eat anymore. It's just a human frailty thing.
Frailty thing. I think that what was I gonna say? I had something I thought was good. It didn't. It was right before self-esteem. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I jumped on you, so I needed to deliver that gold joke. So.
But I guess. Oh yeah, this is what I was gonna say. I guess one of the things that I've noticed recently is I've become a lot less patient with people who aren't willing to get out of their comfort zone, and with the teaming of NBC, I've found some better ways to say that to people. But
so how do you do that, Nick?
How do I do that? Let's think of a way that I could. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but what I find is humor works. If you can kind of joke, it depends on the person too. But like, what I guess the things that I get up that I'm just impatient about is people who are scared of things. Like, people who are picky with food. That just upsets me, because I like making food and I like using ingredients that are not processed. So most people in America aren't really that into my fresh food. And I just get, it's like, it just peeves me when somebody says something stupid like they think my milk is, like, the milk that we make is dirtier than what they would get in the store. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is kind of, I guess this is a different example that I'm thinking of. But, our milk that we milk our goats from, we test it every month, and we get way less of a bacteria count than the stuff you get in the store. So our raw milk has less bacteria than the pasteurized milk that you can get at Safeway. So anyway, I guess that, like, my thing is, like, you're scared of getting out of your comfort zone, trying something, some new kind of food, and I try to find a way to get, like, I make pickles too. This has been one that people don't want to try my pickles because they're not heated, they're not pressure canned.
Wow. I'm just glad.
Right? Some people.
I just want to say, man, like, we were talking culture and stuff like that in the beginning. Now, I grew up drinking, like, I was drinking raw milk every fucking day,
Right?
Yeah, we just had a guy, in the village nearby, and he would just bring it.
Yeah, that's how everybody used to be.
And pickles, everybody made them. So that That's Eastern Europe. Still true, although probably decreasing. But yeah, so now it's like the, well, I can't eat this pickle,
Right? Like, this is the way it's been made for thousands of years. Many people have eaten these pickles before you, many of your ancestors. So I don't know. Like, those are that's my main thing, is people who aren't willing to step out of their comfort zone, mainly with food. Because you pretty much know with food that, if you do at least a moderate amount of research like I have, you know what to avoid. There's certain things that'll make you feel this way, and then there's certain foods that we don't eat stuff that'll kill most people, right? Like, you pretty much know if you're allergic to something. But I don't know. That's one of my main things. And I guess the way that I try to do that is I try to find a nice way of explaining, well, listen, our milk is actually cleaner than the stuff you get in the store. Or my pickles, this is how it works. And it doesn't always work. Like, I don't know. It's hard to sometimes get there. And most of the time my strategy is, it's just like, oh, hell, more for me, But, I don't, maybe I haven't found as many, ways to call people out in a nice way. I can think of ways that I've done it in a not so nice way. Me and my buddies have we call each other Clarence. if you're not willing to step up and be brave or do something that would be challenging, then your name's Clarence. It's the way we use it. So I don't know. Those are my examples. So call somebody Clarence if they're not willing to. But those are the strategies, and that's not a very NBC conscious strategy.
Yeah, but I guess you know what? I mean, we could, if you want to, we could do an OFNR right now, right? Because,
sure.
Let's take the pickles example. Yeah, like what?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my observation is I offer pickles and somebody looks at me weird, like, how did you make these, Nick? And they ask me that, and I explain, well, and they, they don't like that I haven't used pressure canner. They say, hey, I don't want to try those, Nick. I'm not quite comfortable with that. And that makes I wonder where the need comes from here. I guess my feeling is it might be annoyance or frustration, I guess, but I'm just kind of just annoyed, I guess would be the word. Like,
I think like vanilla NVC would, like Rosenberg would throw those back at you because it'd say that's still judgment of no, that's still about the other person,
Oh, I see.
Like they're annoying you. I might be wrong, but I think, annoyed is like part of that's not a feeling, that's a judgment of the other person.
Really? Then what would be, I guess what would I feel in that moment then? Cause like I feel like, maybe it's disbelief, or what is it? I don't know what that feeling is, cause I'm looking at these people like, what? Why aren't you gonna taste my pickle? This is the best thing in the world. I'm disappointed, I guess. Maybe that's what it is.
I think that's also, that's also, right? 'Cause you can't be disappointed.
I'm gonna look it up. I'll look up while we're speaking.
Yeah. But I'm saying this all the while. I'm not sure what it would be. Right? Like, it's not anger, right?
Maybe it's a toned down version of anger. 'Cause it's not like I'm mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoyed. Okay, I'm seeing here. I'm finding here. Annoyed is a big category, so they don't really want you to use annoyed. You're right. So I guess aggravated, dismayed, disgruntled, exasperated, frustrated, impatient, irritated is.
Oh, okay.
So frustrated's in there.
All right.
Irritated, irked, maybe. It's just like I want these people to try it, but they won't, and that disappoints me. So I think the need that I'm looking for is it's a recognition need. I want them to recognize my good work. Like, I made this delicious pickle. I want you to try it and tell me it's good, right? That's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And when I hear that you don't like it, right, my feeling is I get annoyed and frustrated that you won't taste my pickle because of these objections, right?
Right.
And my strategy would be to, say, the strategy that I might think of using. Well, I'll say it again. I guess I kind of I did say the need, but then I was going back to feelings. I tried to redo just right there, and I skipped to the strategy. But I guess the need I'd be looking for is, I'm looking for a recognition of or admiration from these people, and then my strategy, I would say, is I try to kindly explain. Well, this is the safest thing you could do. That's like I've looked it up, and you can look it up. No bacteria can survive in a 1% or 2% solution of salt except this lactobacillus bacteria, and that's what the pickling agent is. So,
Right.
That's, and does that work all the time? No, it just doesn't. And that's part of the thing too, is I have to realize that.
So it's kind of a visibility thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's so like you want, so, you want, I guess it's kind of a big, when you don't get visibility needs met is when someone reacts in a surprising way, like in an unexpected way, like you're like, oh, I'm like giving you a gift, for example.
Yeah.
And like you'd expect like gratitude or whatever, or admiration. And then you get like the opposite, like distrust. And it's like not in line with what you were expecting and how you think of yourself, like you expected to get it reflected back to you, right? That you're like a cool artisan dude. And it's like you're like this poisoner, crazy person, dude.
Cooking up weird concoctions.
Yeah. But what that kind of thinking about it, what that would tell me is that like you don't necessarily want them to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
You just want them to recognize that, you're not, like you're a trustworthy person.
Right.
So if they said something like, hey, Nick, I don't think that you're trying to poison me or that you're so responsible that you wouldn't check it. Like, I trust that, you're confident about it, but I don't feel comfortable eating this. I don't feel safe eating this. Like I could do it, but it wouldn't be like a great experience for me right now.
Sure.
And, and maybe it will change, but, like with that.
I think so. I think if somebody told me that, I think that at least my reaction doesn't feel the same, but this isn't exactly the same context, but, I think I would appreciate that more than not, and the weird skeptical look like, fuck you, dude.
But that's the issue. Like this, I think it takes so much time to go through this. There's so much focus. Like that's kind of a problem with NVC. Cause now you can be more chill. I think you can be like, they're, cause if you look like, let's reverse it. Their side, I think it's like a safety need, right? They want to protect themselves.
Yeah, probably. I that would be my guess.
And they just want to protect themselves. And like, it's like, okay, I get that, right?
Yeah.
That's understandable, but But in the moment, I think it's really, I don't know how to put it. It's like a program that's very, very intensive on your computer. It's like hard to boot it up in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. And I had this too, I had situations like this. I fail most of the time, but even when I succeed to like think in these terms, it just takes a lot of effort. Like, okay, if I'm well rested and I'm patient and I had a good day, like I can pull it off, but it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely, I shouldn't, like, I don't want to say that I do it perfectly either, because I've definitely gotten better, and a lot better, I think, than I have been in the past. just being able to recognize it in the moment, to be more in that interested mindset of paying attention. I think I do a pretty good job at it, but it definitely doesn't happen. I wouldn't say that my my responses to the pickle people are as NBC friendly as they could be, because these are usually people I know and that know me, and I know that they're skeptical a little bit at this point. So that now I know some of the people that'll try it, and I know the other people that are gonna look, and now I kind of go for the reaction, because I do get a kick out of telling them, at least with some of them, I like to hold it above them that, hey, I've done a little bit of research, and I actually know my shit, friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that, and I wouldn't say that that's, it doesn't help me get anybody to eat my pickles. But I pressured one friend into it, doing something like that, so it worked a little bit. But out of, that was 1 out of 10.
Wow. Really? That's
using that strategy of telling people, no, I've done the chemistry research. They didn't really like to hear that. But these are all skeptical people, and I knew that I was, fighting an uphill battle there.
Just 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, you need Eastern European friends. That's the.
I know.
That's the FDR solution. I mean, they probably don't like Eastern Europeans now, but insofar as someone's not playing along, you gotta end that relationship and find virtuous people.
Pickles?
They're irrational.
Can't be friends.
Here's the truth. They're irrational and they're not gonna change, Nick. So
yeah, I never liked pickles.
You gotta find new friends.
Yeah, I have to say on that point, I thought about, especially with friends, and not so much my family. I've thought about, the people and how I felt like I was getting what I was getting out of my relationship with them. I'd say, within the recent past, I've definitely had feelings of, I'm not getting anything out of this, and I should try to change that. But I think instead of I haven't cut it. There's only maybe a few people that I've been I'm not going to deal with you because I just can't. You're sucking away my serenity. There's been a couple people like that, but most people, it's just instead of taking that tactic, I think I talked about this in our mastermind group. I reached out to you guys about this issue of it was specifically kind of. I was looking for my for respect from people, and because I get a lot of respect from and praise from people who listen to my podcast and are customers of my farm, because they're very familiar with my work. But these people aren't, because they don't buy Yak Meat, they don't listen to podcasts. So I had a lot of issues of just I need these people to understand that I'm brilliant. And they don't, because they see the other side of me, right? And so I joke that I want them to think I'm brilliant, but I didn't feel like I was getting the respect, and I thought I was being disrespected in some ways. But after looking at how I felt and why I felt about that, and how realistic it really is to expect that from people, I've changed my mind, and I've looked at, well, what do I actually want from these people? I don't care about respect anymore. And I kind of made a conscious decision. I think that part of me still does. I still want recognition from anybody, especially if I do something for them. But I have more of that. I realize that they don't recognize what I've done because they haven't seen it, and they're just not really interested in seeing it, and that's fine. That's not really who those people are for me anymore. They're not the people that I'm gonna try to impress, or try to get to give me money, or say nice things about me. These are the people who've known me for a long time and understand, my failures and have watched me grow up. They watched me do all the stupid things I've done, and I've watched them do all the stupid things they've done. And there's a different value of a different kind of relationship. So I just you would be somebody who I've I've actively tried to make my friend. It's like, I wasn't raised with Philip. But a lot of people in my local friend group, I was raised with them. So, they're my friends because we grew up together in school. Not because we have similar values. And just kind of having that recognition has been helpful for me to be like, okay, this isn't somebody that I'm necessarily trying to build something with, like Philip. They don't really need to know that I'm, capable of doing what I say I can, like, Philip would. Like if you doubted me on something project, I don't know if I'd be upset, but it would be an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then, you're not confident that this project could get done. So but I don't need that from that friend group. So you get what I mean? Like I did the assessment of, well, how do I feel? What are the needs that I'm looking for? And what can I do about it? And my strategy has been, well, meet that need with other people.
Yeah, man, I have like 3 different threads. I just want to go down on, like just based on what you said. I guess I'll try to go through them. So first of all, I want to say, man, I had that experience a lot too. And I think it's, here's the thing. Something I noticed recently is that I generally found that when I look at people's work that they put serious effort into, like even if it's not, I don't know, like objectively great, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like my respect, my admiration just goes up,
Right.
And that to me, that's very interesting. I had people who I'm like, I don't like this person very much. I don't, I don't admire them in any kind of way. Yeah? And then I see a piece of work that they've done, like not just the usual conversations that we have, but something where they applied like conscious, focused effort, and I see that effort in that piece of work.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I'm like, wow, this, like this person has a whole side that I had no idea. And it just shot up, and I had one experience like this, and I got to thinking like, yeah, I don't think I don't have a single person I've seen their work that they put effort into, and that I didn't respect them more afterwards.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what work, it doesn't matter if it's like a podcast or a book, or they're a mechanic and they fixed the car really well, or they made the nice soup, or it really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And like, okay, that was one thread. Second thread, I think, like, for both of us as people who like have a kind of a public, like we put our work out into the public in the forms of podcasts at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think probably everybody experiences that, and probably also people who are, like just they have a career and they built some reputation within their industry. But anyway, there's this huge disconnect between the people who know you in that context and for your work versus the people who just know you, like who get you like the light version, like they get Nick everyday edition, like day to day, like not brilliant Nick when you turn on the mic and you start, like where your effort is there, but they just get like the watered down version. And I don't know how people deal with that, because I have the same thing, like it's really fucks with your brain, like I have a group that really respects me, and I have a group who thinks like the opposite sometimes, or like they don't recognize big chunks of who I am.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's people I know how, what Philip has, like, I know what you've done in terms, like, because we track each other, right? You and I especially know the work that we put in because we report back every week. But yeah, it's interesting, and I bet like being in the public eye, it gives you a part of the reason why we do this is because we are looking for that extra attention, right?
Yeah.
And there's reasons for it, I think. Like, part of it is attention is just intrinsically fun. Like, I just think it's fun to be the center of attention. I like people to be interested in me. but also it's because, I'm trying to, like, there's something I'm trying to do with my work. It's not just for the attention. And I want that to succeed. And then when I meet somebody that I care about, right, that I feel like it just doesn't feel like, because I care about them and I care about the work that I do. I care about this podcast. And then like my kind of thought is, well, if you like care about me but you don't care about my podcast, then you don't really care about me, because this podcast is me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of, I don't feel that way, because I'm like, well, the thing is some people don't like podcasts. Most people don't listen to podcasts, but some do. And if you're somebody that listens to podcasts that I know and you don't like my podcast, then it's probably because it's just not your thing. And that's fine, because there are people that I really like that I don't listen to their show. I could say I haven't listened to every episode of Valiant Growth.
Okay, this call ends now.
How dare you? Right? But you know what I mean? Like there's like, it's just, you have to understand that like I can't listen to everybody's episode, like podcast that I want to. They can't listen to every podcast that they want to, and maybe they just don't even want to.
Yeah.
And having, I guess, like, it's part of it is having the realization of what's realistic.
Yeah, like scarcity, right, and time and all of that. And that, you know what? I think there's there's a big extra layer to, like, this kind of familiarity breeds contempt type situation. I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Necessarily, but it is true sometimes. Like when you don't, like, you have like an acquaintance, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I definitely notice this sometimes. Like if I have, I don't know, like move into a house, yeah, and there's like, so, some person there, and I don't know, we talk sometimes when we wash our dishes, If they tell me they have a podcast, like, partly it's interesting, but partly I do have this like reaction, or let's say an old friend that I used to know, and they say, oh yeah, I actually have a podcast. I have to say, like, my first reaction is that, okay, like, I don't think that's going to be that great. I think many people have this, and I don't know exactly why, but I think it's partly because you've never seen like the focused work of the person.
Mm-hmm.
You've just seen them goofing off, yeah. So I'm like, there's not the A game, and every single time, man, when something like this happens, and I look at it, I'm like, wow. I was, it exceeds my expectations every single time, but I think there's an effect like that going on as well, with people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think you're right. That makes sense to me. I think that I would like to think that I would be excited about that, because I just really like to discover new podcasts. I think it's exciting when somebody makes anything.
Yeah, but maybe it's like something, because I was thinking too, like, but with a podcast, at least, I'm pretty familiar with that. But like, what if it's
you wrote a book? Like, if somebody told me they wrote a novel, I'd be like, nah.
Oh yeah,
cool, dude.
Yeah, because it's a huge investment, right, of time.
Yeah.
Or it can be something that you're not familiar with, as podcasting can be to our friends. Sure. Yeah, it's like someone tells me, I do interpretive dance, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hula hooping. No.
Some like
hula hooping, and I like to make fun of hula hooping.
I do hula hooping. Yeah, I'm like, do I want to go see that? No.
No, not really.
Yes, I don't know what it is. I don't know where to go. Like all of that. And if my experiences kind of continue, like if past performance is a prediction of the future, I would probably be impressed if I actually went and saw it.
Sure.
But is my first reaction that? No, it's like something I'm not interested in. That person I know is like a goofing around type of person because I didn't see their work. I think like all of that adds up,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And
definitely makes sense to me.
And like in taking our relationship as an example, like I think we bring the A game pretty much when we're talking.
Yeah.
like, yeah, I could bring the A game, but I don't know. It's like I have friends that I live with. I often like behaved in ways I wouldn't behave on a Skype call, and I don't know what makes the difference. I think it's just sometimes you have less resources. You're tired, whatever. With you, I'd just cancel the call, but with them, sometimes you just got to deal with something, and then it's not your best performance, and it's not their best performance, and it just takes down what you think of the other person, And plus, the other thing is like we are very clear what we're cooperating, and there's not much at stake, but like sometimes you get in like conflict type situations, and then that's that erodes it as well. Whereas, for instance, in our case, like we don't have we have better systems of dealing with it, but also we face much less challenge. Right?
Yeah. I think that helps a lot with because I've noticed that it's real easy for me to be thinking about Stoicism and NVC while I'm on a podcast, because that's where I got familiar with it. But when I threw myself into my regular environments, I had a really hard time learning how to use those techniques, because it's a lot easier when you're typing, and you have time to think, and it's a lot easier when you're just in that context.
And the other person knows the language and the idea, and it's all smooth sailing. But yeah, I think that there's a bit of a danger with that, like for public personalities, because you can get this sense of, I did get this, like, hey, all my American Skype friends are so cool, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's this chosen people group that I found online, but like in person ones, they don't compare, and you can get this like, oh, okay, I gotta end these relation or whatever,
Yeah.
But you gotta recognize that just the context is different, and like if you were to live with those people or whatever, who knows, like it wouldn't be so smooth sailing. You know what? The third thread that I wanted to say is that there's an idea probably from many places, but one is like how I found freedom in an unfree world. The book by Harry Brown, yeah. And he has this idea like, find what works with someone and stick to that. Like, not every relationship has to be everything. I think that's great. I think to me that's like the best answer to this. And it sounds to me like that's what you're doing too.
Yeah.
Like, I can get this need met of, like visibility. Is there something else that we can still do together that makes sense? And if there is, cool. And if there isn't, that's cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's somewhat of an idea of trying to find that perfect person. It's the like kind of, I don't know, maybe it comes from the idea of true love, but I kind of think it's unrealistic, at least in my limited experiences. I've never found somebody who I'm entirely satisfied
it's insane, with. It's
absolutely,
yeah.
And so like I recognize that every you're right. Every relationship has a purpose and it has value, and you just really like I really just want to I just want to know what that value is and make sure it's worth it. It doesn't, like, it's just unrealistic to think that you can get along with everybody. And I found that as I've made more and more friends, that it's been easier and easier, because I find some people are like, I hang out with these folks if I want to do this. Well, I hang out with these guys if I want to do that. It's great. Yeah. And that's what I prefer. Like, I just don't need the same 5 people to be, I just don't, and I like it that they're not the same. Like, Philip Frey has some different things, and then some of my other closer local friends, they don't have the knowledge of like internal, subconscious things going on. You don't how to deal with, what is this word? I'm thinking like therapeutic techniques, I guess. They're not familiar with that, but they also have the, they have the proximity that allows me to, let's work on this physical project together. Like, I can't build something in my yard with you.
Yeah.
We can do a podcast and we can write, articles and stuff together. But, I don't have you there for that, that, because there's, and then there's a different value in being able to do that. There are different projects, of course, but having that face to face, it's valuable in a certain way. So you want to have all of these balances, and you don't want it to be focused on just one person either, right? Because then once you I don't know, it seems like, if you spend maybe you can find a way to make it pretty easy, like I've done with my parents. It's become a lot easier, but there's definitely some friction that happens when you're really close to somebody. And you and I, we've trained each other, trained ourselves, I guess, to be more. I'm going off of where I wanted to go. I don't really remember what it was, but basically what I'm saying is, you don't want to have just one person, and you don't want to have just all the same people. It's nice to have diversity, and not in just in terms of ideologies, but also in terms of just how people are, like their personalities. It's nice to have somebody that maybe is a little bit more encouraging, and then somebody that's more skeptical,
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. And I would say we were talking about Freedomain Radio. That's for me, that experience clarified this stuff a lot for me, because my impression, or at least what I got out of that, was the philosophy or the approach was, find the perfect person. It wasn't stated explicitly as that, but wherever there would be a problem, the focus would be on, okay, let's look into the history of this person and figure out if they're virtuous or not, or let's look at their behavior. And the goal was, are they actually good enough to be in a relationship with you? Mm-hmm. For instance, they don't want to eat your pickles. After you've told them these, arguments, you used reason and evidence, and they didn't respond to it. Not virtuous. Move on. Yeah. And this, I don't think it's unique for that community, but this guaranteed failure, and a lot of the dynamics, in those groups, this is what it happens. People, they cut off all their relationship, step one. Mm-hmm. Or over time. I mean, you don't listen to an episode, but you get what I mean. And then they're but there is this group, which is the FDR listeners, that they're the most virtuous, and, it's going to work with them because they're virtuous. Yeah. You don't need, basically, you found the right people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that doesn't work, because nobody's perfect, and plus you have no tools of dealing with anything, because that's not focused upon how do you make a relationship work. No, it's you got to find the right person, and I guess you got to become the right person, which is, there's some value in that, but mm-hmm. And then what's the end result? Really many, the deeper you were in that community, the worse I think relationships were. It's always this cycle of, it's like love, kind of standard love, standard strategy, this idealization, you're so happy you found someone who listens to the same thing, or has the same political views, or whatever, or mm-hmm. likes it doesn't matter, when you're a teenager, it's they like the same music, that's the right. ultimate. And then, of course, they're not perfect in the end, and you have no tools of how to work out conflicts or anything, and you just keep moving on. And I think it's just it's a cycle of misery, and it all comes from this idea that everybody's got to be everything, and just filter, instead of saying, A, there are skills that make these situations better, B, collaborate with people on their strengths. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a shallow relationship necessarily, you're not missing out if you get something from two people instead of one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, well, hey, I gotta go help my dad feed a baby goat here in a bit. So why don't we wrap it up? Do you have any concluding thoughts on anything we talked about today?
Man, it's been so much stuff.
We talked about a lot. Yeah.
I'm curious what you're gonna make of it. What's the title gonna be? But
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my concluding, we talked a lot about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's I think it's great hope, and they can be really good if you keep these things in mind. I'll say that. So it can get better and better if you do the work and you think things through.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, with that, then you plug your work. Where can people find you?
Okay.
And, anything you've done.
Yeah, so go come to valiantgrowth.com, and I think if you like Nick, you're gonna like my stuff as well. We're an echo chamber, man. That's the truth. But yeah, it's a personal development podcast, and leave a comment somewhere. Like I heard you on the Anarcho-Yakitalist, sorry, on Yakkin with Nick.
Yeah.
And I'll send Nick $1 for every comment that I get.
Ooh, wow, guys, that's a lot of. Send a few comments.
I really want to motivate you extrinsically.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll throw that in the show notes, and I'll try to link some stuff that Philip and I have done. And I appreciate you coming on.
Hey Nick, you know what? What is there an episode that you liked? I guess that would be, like your recommendation is worth more than mine.
Valiant Growth. I can't remember the number, but this is the first one that popped into my mind. And maybe it was because we're talking about relationships. But you had a really good episode on relationships that really helped me think about these ideas, and I just don't remember what episode it was. I think it's 16, but I'm not sure. I think it was in the teens. It was 16 or 18.
And what was the idea?
It was about I feel like it was about structuring a relationship, or maybe looking at, I think it was specifically looking at what do you want out of a relationship. I feel like that was it, but maybe I'm thinking. Yeah, I just don't remember. I think it was about the romantic relationships specifically.
Okay. Well, you know what? Put the link in the show notes, man.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Yeah. I don't remember all of my episodes. And, 16.
Another one.
16 is a part of the series called Core Principles of Relationships.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't agree with all of that stuff anymore because it was a year and a half ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Another one is Don't Be Sexy. That's a good one that you did.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, because this is just we're very similar in that I don't like to dress fancy. I don't like to show off with my clothing.
Okay, if somebody wants to listen to that, that's valiantgrowth.com/25.
Okay.
There we go.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, Philip. And
thanks a lot.
I'll have you on in the future. Probably, my guess is you'll be a fairly recurring guest. That's not the right word. Fairly recurring, but
I recur
we'll have you
with
on
great
a few
fairness.
times. I hope you enjoyed that talk with Philip Frey. I really think it's important to think about your past and the way you communicate with people, your relationships. Because, what matters is your experience, and, the things that most heavily influence your experience are the people around you and your past. The things that happen to you, and often the things that happen to you are humans. They're people in your life, because we're social animals, and that's the way it works. So I think that, it's really good to be aware of how that's influenced you, and I think that's where Philip and I come from, and that in our line of self-development work is, we're trying to figure out in ourselves, why are we the way we are, and how can we use that knowledge to be the best that we can be, in whatever direction that we want to go. So I hope that you got something useful out of that, because dealing with people is really important, and making sure you have quality relationships. It's not just about romance. It's about everybody. You want to make each interaction with every person you can as best as you can make it. Why not? Because it takes too much effort. Maybe that's a good reason. I don't know. I don't think so. If your name's Clarence. But no, I think that it's good to be able to look at that. So I hope that you got some interesting things. Nonviolent communication is useful. There are other methods too. If you don't like that, it's worth it just to think about. The OFNR thing is kind of just obvious. You look at, well, this happened, so I feel that, and why do I feel that? Because I want this, and I'm not getting it, or whatever. It's good to remember that, and to remember that people are just people. Maybe you have a philosophical disagreement with that, but I don't know. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got something useful. If you'd like to check out Philip's work, please do. I will link stuff in the show notes, so check those out. And I think that's it for you guys. Also, because people asked, because I didn't post I was on Thaddeus Russell's Unregistered podcast, and it was pretty exciting. I was very honored that Thaddeus was interested in talking to me. So he came out to the farm, and we did an interview. I won't post it up on this feed probably, but you can find it at Unregistered. And I think it's ThaddeusRussell.com, but I'll post a link in the show notes as well. So check that out, and let me know what you think. This is Yakkin with Nick, so hit me back, and check out the feedback group, Yakkin with Nick feedback group on Facebook, and the link to that will also be there. So talk to you later, folks. Bye.